Dangote Cement retires as Group Managing Director Joseph Makoju in 2020, replacing him with Lafarge's Michel Puchekos. And CEO of financial derivatives company Bismarck Rewane gives an economic outlook on Nigeria's core macroeconomic policy regime as the year 2020 approaches. Welcome to Nairobi, where Kenya and Nigerian sister are serving some Christmas flavor. You need to find that out later on the show. Let's get started. Welcome everyone to Business Incorporated, this Christmas holiday. We welcome everyone. I am Boasting Namafai. The markets in the Middle East are not on holiday this Christmas, but most of the GCC markets were quiet in moderate trading on Wednesday. The Abu Dhabi stock market index rose 0.39% intraday today, while the Dubai financial markets edged down 0.2%. The Saudi stock market, as the Tadawul, was down 0.62% intraday, and the Qatar's index was 0.14%. So how has it been since we started the year 2019? The global stock markets have added more than $17 trillion in total value. That's according to calculations made by the multinational investment bank Deutsche Bank. The Germany-based financial services company says the value of the global stock market, which began the year just under $70 trillion, has now topped $85 trillion in value. And this has been supported by easier monetary policy and political developments around the world, such as Brexit and much clearer global trade. The survey indicates that the world market has been largely dominated by Wall Street. The rally in the U.S. has been broad, with the S&P 500, the Dow and the Russell 2000 all rising more than 20% so far in 2019. Back here at home, the board of Dangote Cement has announced the retirement of Joseph Makoju as the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer effective January 31st, 2020. Makoju, who was brought on board of Dangote Cement from Lafarge Africa, will be replaced by the immediate past Group Managing Director of Lafarge Africa, Michel Puchekos. Meanwhile, the appointment of the incoming CEO will be included in Dangote Cement's next annual general meeting and is expected to be ratified by the company's shareholders. Economist and Chief Financial Officer of the financial derivatives company Bismarck Rewane has praised the Buhari's administration for the release of Sambo Dasuki and Omoyole Sowore on Tuesday. In a one-on-one interview with me on our Business Morning program earlier today, Mr. Rewane provided a breakdown of Nigeria's economic outlook for the incoming year 2020. Take a listen.
2020 should be the year of action, and I say that because of the following: that the GDP projection, which we see for 2020, is 2.3 to 2.4%, which will be slightly higher than what you have in 2019, but certainly better than what we had in 2018, but still below the population growth rate. There's still a recessionary gap. That is, Nigeria's potential GDP is growing at 0.8% higher than its real GDP. You need to fix that. We think that there's a need for at least $10 billion of new infrastructure investment. In other words, like the Lagos-Ibadan rail, the Ibadan-to-Kano rail, the Takpe, a lot of things on the rail side, a lot of things on the roads. You know, all of these incomplete roads do not serve any purpose. In fact, they are bottlenecks. So Minister Fashola will be focusing on those and talking about that. We think that the reserves, because of all of this, we would see some depletion in our reserves, but it doesn't cause, there's no cause for panic at that stage. So we think reserves could go down from current level of 39 to about 36, but you are taking some of your reserves and some of your borrowing and investing in projects, right? Projects like the rails, the roads, the bridges, the power stations.
So if we bring in fresh borrowings, as the Minister of Finance has said,
yes,
working together under the strategic MDAs, cooperation and integration, which I've seemed to notice, you have the central bank, you have the FRS, you have the customs, look like the critical revenue agencies are now speaking from the same sandbox. Yeah. Do you think this will help deliver part of what you call the critical interventionist program for 2020?
Let's put it this way.
Are they on track?
The investments must lead to productivity, right? So, for example, Train 7 or LNG, is a $10 billion investment. It's going to produce so much revenues for the country down the road, right? And we have to take our position, because don't forget that Russia is trying to pipe gas all the way to the European Union. The Americans are trying to stop that. Mozambique's gas is going to start in another 2 years. Mozambique is very close to Asia. So the transportation cost of one scoop of gas from Mozambique is almost 50% lower than coming from Nigeria going through the Cape of Good Hope and all of that. So
and Morocco is already there as a major player with Dubai.
We need to leverage on the gas.
So you think 2020 should be a year we should put our foot on the gas pedal?
Absolutely. And also we are, I mean, the country is looking at incorporating their JVs with the oil companies rather than going around limping around every gasping for cash calls. The IJVs will be able to raise their money on their own, and that will give Nigeria back the fiscals a lot more revenue, which they were spending on cash calls, because those companies will raise their own money. And then we use that for hospital, roads, and critical social infrastructure. So we think that, but because of all of this, there will be increased forex volatility. Of course, you know the ECHO is starting on January 2nd.
Yes.
And so that has certain implications, but not negative.
So if you look at the borrowings, Mr. Rewane, very quickly, if you look at the planned borrowings, 2029, whatever figure, and what the borrowing plan, do you think on the fiscal side, whether domestic tax revenue raising or through this rearrangement or realignment of contract deals and new investment, we should be able to borrow that money because we have some plan on how to pay back?
Yeah, you see,
or how to turn the money into productivity.
No, there's consumption borrowing, in which case you have the debt and you've finished it buying kerosene or petrol and all of that. You have project-related borrowing, and then you have project-specific. In this case, I think it's project-specific, and some of it is concessionary. If you're borrowing from the World Bank at 2% for 30 years, it's as good as equity. But if you're borrowing the Eurobond market and you're spending 8, 9, 10, then you better know that the returns from what you are borrowing, what you are deploying those funds for, must give you an output that more than covers the cost of debt service.
And heaven helps you if U.S. interest rate or currency.
Because the U.S. interest rate will stay low because there's an election in 2020.
Yes.
But immediately after the election, you can expect interest rates to go because inflation is going to rear its ugly head again in the United States. So for us, the way we see it here, in Q2 or in Q1, we think that the interest rate environment, which today is much lower than the rate of inflation, will have to change. There's no question about it. There's no way you can have treasury bills earning 4% and inflation at 12%. That's 8% negative rate of return. So we think that something will happen to change the interest rate environment in the first quarter of 2020. The minimum wage,
would that be coming through from the central bank?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
that should come from.
The central bank governor was very clear that the tactical, they will respond when the time is necessary, but their main mandate is to preserve and maintain financial sector and financial stability, right? And you cannot say there's financial stability if the rate of inflation is going to 12%. So something has to happen. So while on one hand, the loan to deposit ratio works, while on the other hand, lending to the private sector has increased, while on one hand, growth has actually started going up, but then once inflation gets to 12%, it becomes, in the words of the central bank governor, becomes growth retarding. So you have to do something. And those interest rates, the interest rate environment, because there's what we call the marginal propensity to consume and the marginal propensity to save. When you earn 100 naira, you probably spend 70 naira on consumption and 30 naira on savings. Savings is a function of interest rates. You only save when the interest rates are high. If interest rates are low, then you reduce your savings, and guess what? You increase your consumption. Once you increase your consumption, the pressure on the currency begins to increase. So right now, we have these heterodox methods which have brought interest rates far lower than the rate of inflation. And I think that's an aberrational situation. It will correct itself. We haven't had that in a long time.
Two things for 2020. Will there be currency devaluation? Would there be removal of petrol subsidy? These are two turning issues we're looking at in the new year. What's your take? What do you think?
I don't think that the value of the currency is an issue. because the currency value depends on so many variables: oil markets, oil production, level of productivity, and quite frankly, China has been accused of being a currency manipulator because many countries are lowering the value of their currency to be able to gain market share. So I don't think it's a strategy that we will use our currency to gain market share because our export profile is oil, LNG, cashew nut, and cocoa. So I doubt that will be the strategy.
So technically, we keep it tight.
No, we keep it stable and predictable. But if there's a need, if there's a pressure because of external sector vulnerabilities,
Yes.
then, like I said, on interest rates, there might be a need to make an adjustment, but not when you say the word devaluation, people say, "Oh, let me go and speculate." No, if that cannot be the goal. The goal is to maintain price stability. The goal is to maintain, to achieve growth. The goal is to get at least 10 million people out of poverty in 2020. The goal is to grow, and the goal is actually not to make Nigerians to suffer further, hardship. So in other words, Nigerians the goal should be to make them happier. But these are words. What Nigerians viewing out there want to know is that, yes, we've heard these words before. What we want is tangible evidence, evidence-based activity that shows that my life is better off this year than it was last year.
So what we talk about this intervention is on the fiscal side and on the monetary side. Is it the turning around of the Nigerian ship, as it were? Is that what President Buhari is trying to achieve?
The ship is big and the ship is heavy. And it's very difficult to do that. But you see, the audience, the people sitting out at home are saying, look, here we go again. The promises, potential, blah, blah, blah. Tangible results. If the Lagos-Ibadan Railway is commissioned and people are going on it, they will see, they can feel the impact. That means rather than stay in traffic for 3-4 hours, I can catch the train from Ilado or Papalanto or wherever, right? Yeah. Abeokuta, and get into Lagos in 1.5 hours. I'm better off staying in Shagamu, staying in Papalanto and catching that train than staying somewhere in Gbada or somewhere. Right? So if I see that, if I see Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which has an endless construction, if it's finished and people can then begin to drive past, where we are on this place, and it takes me 1 hour, 15 minutes to get to Ibadan, great. But promising people that it's going to happen, we've been promising for so long. Now it's time for results, strategic, fundamental results. I think that's the difference, that 2020 has to be year of getting things done, concessioning those airports, right? Getting the IJBs, getting LNGs, Train 7, getting the rail to work, getting those roads to be completed, right? Getting the cost-reflective tariffs so that people can, okay, even if I'm paying more for electricity, I'm getting constant electricity like you have in Magodo, then yes, I get my minimum wage, and quite frankly, if there's a VAT hike, hike, so be it, but let there be value. Now, the 15 naira stamp duty thing, I think I heard yesterday that it has been reversed. Central Bank President said the merchant should be paying for it now. The consumer protection thing, I said, look, it's out of the way. Restoration of toll gates. If you're going to put toll gates, the roads better be good. So you're not going to do toll gates without having the roads fixed. Nigerians do not like that. So we got to put, the two have to go together. Right?
Okay.
I think that.
So what will change in 2020 and what will not change?
In 2020?
In 2020, yes. Okay.
No, first of all, let me take what will happen in the stock market in 2020.
Oh, okay. I like my word.
Yeah. There'll be a gradual improvement in investor confidence. Investors right now are bruised because they're getting nothing on cash. They're getting 2%, 3% on treasury bills. They're very sore. Something has to happen. You can't allow foreigners to come and get 13% here, and Nigerians will get 2% on the same investment.
Will there be any political drive for these brighter days ahead at the stock market?
Yes.
Perhaps the release of Dasuki and Showore. Do you think that's a political investment?
No, the more stable the political environment, the more liberal, the more tolerant government is, the more confidence investors will have.